Welcome to the Whole Food Plant-Based Cooking Show, where we make plant-based cooking easy. I'm Jill, and today we are going to make a delicious shepherd's pie that is fully plant-based.
It's the all-free whole food plant-based cooking show.
Today's show is brought to you in part by Scindian Natural Food Products. Scindian is a family-owned and operated Australian company celebrating 20 years in business, making a wide range of affordable plant-based gluten-free products like burgers, sliders, sausages, and more. No preservatives, stabilizers, emulsifiers, or additives. Just clean, minimally processed, whole food ingredients that never compromise on flavor. In the US, you can find Scindian products in many independent health food and specialty grocery stores, and in the freezer aisle at select Meijer stores, or by ordering online at meijer.com. In Australia, you'll find them online at scindian.com.au and at your local supermarket. Scindian, guided by nature. So Happy New Year! I hope you all had a great New Year's, and this is going to be a great start to this new year. Inside of our membership community, our supporting members voted for this recipe last month, so they got to vote on what I create next, and it just happened to be shepherd's pie. So I'm going to create that for you today. We're going to get started first with, I have about 6 cups of a mixture of Yukon Gold and just russet potatoes, just chunked, because we need to get those in the water boiling for that fluffy mashed potato top. But I'm going to get my onions and celery going first. So this is a medium-high pot, 1 large onion, diced pretty small, and 3 stalks of celery. And we're going to get those cooking, and we're going to cook them down till they're kind of caramely and brown. We want to get the most flavor out of those as possible. And if you notice, I don't have any oil in my pan. I'm not even going to do water, because as these cook, that moisture is going to come out and it's going to brown them really nicely. You just have to babysit them a little bit more. Stir them around, but make sure you get them really nice and golden brown. So now I'm going to throw in my potatoes, and if you want the complete recipe, there'll be a link in the description below for a printable recipe, and I'm going to get these potatoes in. So I'm going to let those boil until they're, soft. I poke them with a fork, and then they're done. So I'll be right back. Today's show is brought to you in part by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative people. Creating this cooking show ourselves involves a lot of moving parts and requires us to have a wide range of skills. We wanted to improve the quality of our food photos, so we turned to Skillshare and found the fundamentals of DSLR photography with Justin Bridges, and were blown away with how quickly Justin had us up and running. The first 1,000 people to use the link in the description below will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium membership, and after that, it's only around $10 a month. Okay guys, if you want to come in and take a little bit of a look to see what these onions should look like before you go on, just, lightly brown. You can see that it's starting to stick to the bottom here, but don't you worry. We're going to soak up all of that goodness in our next step here. Okay, so we are going to add 4 tablespoons of tomato paste. And that is going to give it all of that gravy, that rich, rich flavor. It's going to be so delicious. And then I have 1 teaspoon of thyme and 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika. And then I have 3 carrots diced just into little chunks. And 2 cups of finely diced cauliflower. So what we're trying to achieve here, because typically shepherd's pie is made with ground beef. So we're trying to replace that ground beef. So if you chop up your vegetables in really small chunks, and then we're going to also add our lentils, it kind of resembles that ground beef texture. So we're just going to keep stirring that in here, and then we're going to add 1/3 cup of red wine. Now if you don't want to use red wine, you can always just use vegetable broth. I just feel like red wine adds just another layer of flavor and depth, and that is going to get all of that It's going to deglaze that pan. So all of that goodness cooked from the onions and the celery is going to get cooked in there. So we want to cook this for another 5 minutes or so, and we can just add, you know, if you feel like it's sticking, we have our vegetable broth here, which is one of the next steps. There's 2 cups of vegetable broth here. You can always just put a little bit of vegetable broth just to keep things moving, but we want to get these cauliflower and the celery softened up just a bit. So I'm going to add just a little bit and get that cooking for another, like I said, 5 to 10 minutes. So if you want to come on and take another look, this is the next step of how things should look at this point. The cauliflower is just barely getting soft. So that's perfect because all of this stuff has still got time in the oven. So even if it's just about half cooked, it's got that time in the oven to finally, you know, finalize cook it. So our next thing is lentils. So this is 3/4 of a cup of dry lentils that I cooked. So that comes out to about 1.5 to 2 cups of lentils. So if you're going from a can, it's about 1 can of lentils. And these are just a regular brown lentil, but you could use whatever lentil you really like. There's so many different types out there that are delicious. We're gonna add that. We're gonna add a cup of peas. These were just frozen peas. Then we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of tahini, and that's going to give that gravy a really rich flavor. But this is optional. This is just if you want to take that gravy up a notch, but if you're really looking, you know, to keep the fats down, you can definitely leave that out without compromising on flavor. And we're going to use a tablespoon of tamari. This is a teaspoon, so I'm just gonna guesstimate here. It's about 2.5 teaspoons for a tablespoon. And this is a low sodium tamari sauce. And now we're gonna add in that vegetable broth. And that's what's gonna cook up into a really nice gravy. So now we're just gonna stir these all together really well. And we're going to let that simmer for another about 5 minutes just to let all of that broth soak into those vegetables. So while that's cooking, I want to give a shout out to Alicia. Happy New Year. I hope you're doing well. All right, let's let this cook for just a few minutes, and by then our potatoes will be ready and we can just get it all assembled. While we're waiting for that, I'd like to share with you some background on our show. The Whole Food Plant-Based Cooking Show is crowd-funded, which means these free weekly recipe videos, along with our entire catalog of recipes on our website, plantbasedcookingshow.com, and our new Plant-Based Cooking Made Easy cookbook, are all made possible in part by the generous patronage of our supporting members. By becoming a supporting member, you gain access to great member perks like monthly product giveaways, free downloads of our ebooks, and access to our in-depth courses, including our 28 Days Plant-Based Made Easy course, where we offer a step-by-step guide to making the switch to a fully plant-based diet. We create this show for the hundreds of thousands of viewers just like you who tune in each month from all over the world to make it easy for everyone to live a plant-based lifestyle. So if you love our content, please join us on our mission and become a supporting member today by following the link in the description. Okay, let's get back to the show. All right, this looks good. If you want to come and see, so this is the final step with the gravy vegetable mixture. It's soaked up all of that broth and is nice and thick and creamy, and it smells amazing. So we're just gonna let that sit here for a second, and we're gonna mash our potatoes. So our potatoes are already done. I've drained off the water, and I'm gonna mash them first just with a regular potato masher. You can do this with an immersion blender, but do not put this in a blender or food processor. Something happens to those starches when you do that, and it turns out a big gummy mess. So I like to just mash it down a bit first before I mix in the ingredients that are going to make this really creamy, so that it doesn't just soak in right away while I'm getting these mashed up. It's just a little bit easier if you do this first. And then you can also see if you've got all of those big chunks mashed out. Okay, there we go. That looks pretty good. And it will get mashed a little bit further when we put our other ingredients in and mash it with our spoon. So I'm going to add a couple teaspoons of liquid aminos, but you could use like a low sodium soy sauce, or you could use salt. I'm just trying to keep it a little bit lower sodium here. I'm going to use 4 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. That is what's going to give it that creamy, kind of buttery flavor. Yum. There's 4. And I have 3/4 of a cup of soy milk. Now this is unsweetened soy milk, but you can use whatever plant milk you have, but just try to use the unsweetened kind. Definitely not the vanilla because it's going to give it a funny flavor. So I'm going to put in about a 1/2 cup to start. And this all depends on, you know, your potatoes, like the size of the potatoes, the moisture level of your potatoes, to how much of this liquid you're going to need. So it looks like I'm going to need a bit more. I'm just going to put it all in because it looks like it's probably going to need that much. Just going to keep mixing it up till it's really nice and smooth and creamy. And we can get that into our pan. So our oven is preheated to 400 degrees and it's already ready to go. Okay, that looks good. Okay, set those aside. I'm gonna get out my casserole dish. So I've got a big casserole dish. So this is a 9 by 13, I believe. So this is a big serving. So I feed a family of 4. We have an extra for dinner tonight. So this is plenty enough for everybody to have a serving and for leftovers tomorrow. So we're just gonna get that all, pour your saucy part into the pan. Smooth that down a bit. That smells good. Okay, now we're ready for the potatoes. Now this is the part you get to go get creative with. So I like to just put globs on all over first, because if you just plop down a big glob, it's kind of hard to smooth it around. So I kind of just do globs. And then the next part is where you can get creative. You can use a fork. Most people just use a fork and kind of make a design in the top. Or you can use I've seen people use like those cake decorator spatulas. It gives a little bit of a neat texture to it. But I am just going to use this spoon. I'm going to do it kind of like what you would do a meringue, like a meringue pie. It's just a little bit easier. And I just think it looks kind of nice. There we go. Ooh, those are hot. Okay, got all of that in there. Okay, now here we go. And you just lightly spread. If you push this too hard, it's just gonna sink down into that lentil and vegetable mixture. So you're just trying to get it spread out all the way to the sides and kind of a consistent thickness. Takes a little bit of time, but it's so worth the effort. And it looks so nice when you're done. Looks just like a nice, comforting mashed potato casserole. Oops, okay. Okay, I'm gonna make just some little swoops with my spoon. Just kind of digging it down on the edge a little bit more to make those little scoop shapes. A little more over there. Okay. There we go. Okay, now we're gonna get this into the oven and we're gonna set the timer for 30 minutes. And then the last 5 minutes, or not 5 minutes, probably more like 2, you're gonna turn your oven on to broil just for a couple minutes, and you're gonna have to watch it really carefully because that's what's gonna make that top brown up really nice and you'll be able to see the pattern into it. Okay, let's get it in the oven. Okay, come look at this delicious shepherd's pie. It's nice and golden brown. Oh, wow. I can't wait to dig into this. So I'm gonna let this sit for probably about 10 minutes or so, and then I'll meet you at the table for a taste. Here we go, guys. Time to taste this thing. Yum. Get a nice portion out here. Oh, wow. Those potatoes look so creamy. Look at that. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay. So, I already know this is gonna taste just as good as it looks. But here we go. Ooh, that's gonna be hot. What is better than a meal topped with mashed potatoes? Oh my gosh. That is so, there's just so many flavors, and the creamy mashed potatoes on the top. You are just gonna love this. So go ahead and give this a try. Give this video a like, and I'll see you next time.